And we are back with another episode of Sound Speed Action. Today is our special Halloween spoiler review episode, and this episode is going to be on the Zach Cregger 2025 movie Weapons. So if you have not seen it yet, maybe bookmark this episode, go watch this amazing film, and then come back and listen. And keeping up with tradition, we have our good friend of the podcast and horror movie aficionado, Chris Chang, and he called in remotely. What you're going to hear is our discussion on this film. So I will introduce each section. We will fade into hearing that part that we talked about before moving on to the next section. Now, one last warning I do want to mention, as this is a Halloween film and keeping in tradition with the previous years when we've had this kind of an episode, I do feel that it's important to say that on this episode, you're going to hear about a messed up film. So there are details in here that include violence and things of a very disturbing nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Happy Halloween.
In this first part, we talk about story structure and first impressions.
No, I think from what I remember, like you were saying, the movie was segmented in different chapters and from different perspectives from the characters. I think that's a great approach. I really like that kind of style. So this movie, Weapons, at least for me, because it really does keep the audience kind of thinking about what's going to happen or how is this piecing together. It was a good movie. I remember coming out of it being like, wow, that was a lot more intense and violent than what I thought it would ever be.
In this second part, we do a recap of the plot and talk about the Aunt Gladys's powers.
So, as you were saying, with the aunt or the grandma of this kid that is dying, and she possesses this ability to basically take energy from innocent people to survive for herself. So these kids go missing. And as the movie kind of reveals itself, this grandma is the person who has stolen these kids' energy to live longer. So at the end of the movie, when the spell, quote unquote, the spell is broken or reversed, because basically this grandma, she has the ability to take over your soul, your energy, possess you. And that's where the kids become weapons, because she can make them do some crazy shit, including killing people. And it's just bizarre because you see these, what grade are they in? They're like, maybe
they're
fourth,
middle
third
schoolers.
graders?
Yeah. Middle schoolers.
Yeah. So it's an interesting take because these innocent children are utilized by someone to become this form of a weapon. And so for the spoiler, before that, it was still very graphic. But that last scene that I would like to talk about with you, where it's just ingrained in my head, is these children are cannibalizing this woman, because in the event the spell gets reversed and she no longer controls them. And so now the kids are attacking this woman, and images of just a dozen or so kids just basically reminded me of a lion and a deer in Africa in a safari, where they just pounce and they're just using their teeth and their hands and just ripping into this flesh, and the blood all over their face, and they're just crowding in on this this woman was evil, but it was just so graphic. I was like, whoa, that was a little hard to watch. But in the sense of it all, it was amazing because the antagonist just got fucking what she deserved.
In this section, we go over the first of 3 crazy scenes that are memorable and stand out in this movie. The first one being the teacher in the car. It's, yeah, like the comeuppance, right? I mean, there's 3 scenes, Chris, in this movie that are burned in my head, and I think the last one I'm gonna mention is the one you were talking about, just kids going after Gladys Witch. But here are the 3 scenes that just shook me and will never leave. The first one is when the teacher is waiting outside the house because she's just trying to figure out what's happening with these kids. They're in this house with these parents that are being weird or whatever to this one boy who's still there.
Yeah.
She falls asleep, and then the mom who is possessed comes out quietly, silently, gets in the car, cuts her hair, and then goes back inside. Chris, I could not breathe during that moment. I'm like, this is the scariest, creepiest goddamn thing ever. First one, so unsettling.
Yeah, that scene when she's on a stakeout watching the only student that's left in her class to kind of figure out the living situation, and the parent, that woman that comes out of the house and to her car while she's sleeping,
Ugh.
and grabs a piece of her hair and cuts it from her is such a trigger, because there are so many times in my life where I've fallen asleep in the car.
Yeah.
And daytime, nighttime, it definitely scares me going forward, because I'm always praying about people just walking by, especially if you don't have any tint on the window.
Yeah.
And then you just wake up to someone just standing there, freaks me out. So that scene was definitely creepy for me.
In this section, we talk about the next most memorable scene, which is when the principal is put under Gladys's spell and then goes after the teacher. Dude, and then the second one would be the principal. What happens when Gladys goes to his home and she's like, I see you're going to cause trouble for me. Pretty much, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And does her little spell, whatever thing, and just turns him into, and her weapon attacks and brutally kills his husband. And then, then when she's like, all right, now I'm going to send you after the teacher, that part was so unsettling, because that whole thing where the principal, like the kid, runs with his hands like sticking out behind him, that V shape, how they run when they're possessed.
Well, we have to talk about that, because I mean, that is the epitome of like a missile,
right?
Right. Yeah. If you got like a missile flying through the air for like trajectory and velocity, that's how these kids and these people, once possessed, are flying through the air, because that one-minded goal is to cause harm.
Right.
And so under her possession, it's like, I'm coming to get you. So yeah, that scene where she possesses the principal, and he's a big guy, and like he just has this crazed look in his eye once he's like possessed. He's not blinking. He just has this like, he's gonna fuck you up kind of thing.
I mean,
and when he just like starts bolting out of the door and like through the front yard and into this gas station where Target acquired, right? It's a fucking weapon, like a missile. It's like a heat seeker. He's going for this teacher, and he's going to do everything in his power to kill her. And that scene and those events were just, again, it was very raw and graphic. And it's really unassuming, because a lot of the trailer is kind of like left for interpretation, and they don't really kind of see that stuff. And so once you see that first kill scene where you're like, whoa, they got away with this is definitely rated R. This is some gory shit. And to a lot of the viewers' surprise and my surprise, I was like, wow. I was like, ooh, this is some serious shit.
So with the principal, definitely when at the gas station, it's interesting because the teacher and that parent are arguing, but how later they kind of are like, oh, we're actually on the same side. As you said, it didn't matter. Like, he didn't care if that parent was going to try to defend her or whatever. He was just a heat-seeking missile. The part, though, that was really disturbing was not even when he gets there. It's showing him running, and there's jump cuts. Like, he's been running down the street, through the city, through a building, through parking garages, whatever. I'm like, this is insane. These jump cuts, it's like, nope, he's still going. In this next section, before we get to the final standout scene, we do a character spotlight on Gladys and what a unique character she is in this movie.
And that was a directive from this Gladys character. Anyway, we didn't even touch base on Gladys herself.
Yeah.
She is freaky. She is scary. Just the way that she perceives herself and the look of her is very unique because she is a very redhead, pale face, clown-esque kind of character. She has an expression where it's really deep. Granted, that is a wig because we do see her later in the movie that she is dying. And I don't know if it's from cancer or what, but she is losing herself.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those features that we see are kind of like a makeup. And that's why I associate her with that very clown-esque kind of perception, which a lot of people are afraid of clowns, and rightfully so. And so they have that kind of thought already with how she presents herself. But on top of that, it's just how she plays out that character as a witch, as she possesses these people with a personal item of theirs. On top of that, it makes it so much creepier.
I mean, I had to look up, the actor is Amy Madigan plays Gladys, and she was awesome in this. In this section, we get to the final standout scene, which is when the children turn on Gladys, and what a scene. But Chris, the final one for me was the one you were talking about, which was when the kids go after her. But specifically, it's because the surviving kid has seen how she casts her spell. And so he gets her hair or something and is like, all right, I'm wrapping it. I'm breaking the twig. And then when you just see all those kids turn on her, and that chase is terrifying because they break glass, windows, doors. They're like a tidal wave. It's
just like a hellfire missiles, man. Someone just fucking hit the button and just unleashed fucking hell. And it was just so satisfying because the kid had made this possible, right? He just found out that his classmates were held against their will in this basement of theirs, was possessed by this witch, and he figured it out, how to reverse the spell and let her fucking eat her own medicine.
And in this last section, we get into our ratings. We talk about some of the themes that we've brought up before with horror movies, as well as our farewell and Halloween sign-off. And before we start this section, I just do want to remind you, listener, that Weapons is streaming now on HBO Max. I do hope you check it out. So Chris, I'm going to ask you two things. I want to ask you your overall score, and I want to ask if you had to summarize in one or two sentences what stood out in this movie for you the most, what's going to stay with you. Before you answer that, though, I just want to say this. That scene where the children turn on Gladys, why that's going to stay with me forever is because I've never seen a movie or a part of a story where, one, it's like I'm glad that someone's getting what they deserve, and yet at the same time, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Like, it's such a horrifying and scary depiction of kids. Like, it actually for a second makes you scared of kids.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I think my score for this movie, and I do really want to rewatch it, I would say a solid 9.
Yeah.
9 out of 10. And the scenes that stood out for me, and I think you made a good point, where the utilization of adolescent human beings, where their frontal cortex is still developing, but the innocence of it all, and the utilization of these people in this chapter of their age, where they're 12, 13 years of age, to be such a conflicting idea, right? Because these kids now are harming someone. They are killing someone. And it's just a bizarre concept in itself. But in the movie entertainment area, I think it's an amazing concept. I think they did a really good job at portraying more of the conversations we can have about this subject in the society that we live in. But as entertainment wise, this reminds me of that movie that you and I had an issue with the hand and the possession
Oh,
with the
yeah.
hand, and they were utilizing these very young characters, these young actors.
Talk to me.
And there was scenes where, yes, talk to me, where there were scenes where we saw children getting possessed and injured and bodily harmed. And I remember having this conversation with you. You're like, we don't know how we feel about this. This is not okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like as we go forward, I think directors, producers are pushing the envelope in this area, utilizing, kids more so because it draws out a big, raw experience. Like it sparks these conversations like, hey, how do you think about that? Utilizing these kids as the main actors in this movie that's rated for rated R.
Yeah, usually it's like the problem where we're talking about it, and before this movie, we were always like, man, okay, showing violence happening to kids is really, even in a horror film, hard to really stomach. This was the first time for me where it's like, okay, the kids are the ones that are attacking. Now, granted, they were attacking the person that had been doing them harm most of the time, but it was so vicious. It was so vicious that I'm like, oh, okay, great. Like now I'm terrified of you. Like this movie, part that will stay with me forever is that it basically, and I think this is why I'm now getting more into horror as well. There's so many ways you can do things in a horror movie. It's such an inventive genre. Big thanks to you, man.
Yep.
I appreciate we keep this tradition going with the Halloween spoiler episode.
And I can't wait to hear this podcast. It's been really fun. And let's keep the tradition going. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, man. Talk to you soon. A big thank you to our friend of the podcast, Chris Chang. It's always great talking to you, man. I can't wait to have you back on for more episodes. Listener, Weapons is a truly unforgettable movie. I do hope you check it out. And as always, thank you for listening.
Happy Halloween.